We're with Creel Price, who 15 years ago started a business with $5,000 and a business partner. Within a decade, Creel built this business to over 1,000 staff and ultimately sold it for over $100 million. We're speaking with Creel about how to start, build and exit a business in the shortest amount of time possible. Creel, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Creel, you've got an amazing story about how you got into business. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I guess I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Actually, it's my 25th birthday, and I'm in Africa, and I'm halfway up the mountain, and I was given Richard Branson's biography actually by a fellow climber, and figured if Branson could set up his own business and create a business empire, I thought I'd be able to do it as well. So I set myself a goal that I'd go back to Australia and start my own business. So that's how it all started. Starting
a business with $5,000, ultimately building it into 1,000 staff and selling for over $100 million. What were some of the things you got right early that ultimately set you up for that success? Well,
I think it started with a big vision and a goal that underpinned the vision, I guess, is Trevor, my partner, and I, we decided that we wanted to make $1 million in a 12-month period, and if we were successful at doing that, we'd go and climb Mount Kilimanjaro together. So that's how essentially it all started. So I think I now refer to the goal that brings it alive as a DAG, a daring, audacious goal. And other things that I think we probably got right is we're pretty flexible to change. Like when you first start a business, you don't know exactly what your success formula is going to be. So we did lots of experimenting, and we were pretty flexible, and we're really like sponges, trying to garner enough information off all of the people that we knew in business or were in our similar type of industry. We used mentors pretty considerably in those early days as well.
And I've heard you speaking about planning and how not to over-plan the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I see a lot of entrepreneurs that come through my programs or whatever that spend way too much time, I guess, in the planning side of things, where they lump down these huge business plans of pages and pages that they've put together. But unfortunately, I think you can spend too much time navel gazing when you first start a business, which can be a little bit destructive because you don't have enough information to get started. So my belief is you should just get started. And don't necessarily have to actually revolutionise the industry you're in. You start to be a follower to start with, and you can start to find out what customers want, what you're able to deliver, and then start to actually improve it, make it faster or cheaper or greater as you go along.
So it's really about going out and testing your model in the market.
Completely, yeah. I think experimentation is one of the really key things that entrepreneurs have to get right. The analogy I use is a recipe that you might be cooking up. Your business model, if you like, is like a recipe where you've got to have a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper and a bit of chili and garlic, and we put all of our famous herbs and spices into that one thing. But if good cooks, it's exactly how they cook. They don't have a list of going through exactly every step by step, but they start to formulate themselves until it becomes a recipe that other people can follow.
So what are the three key areas for people to really focus on when starting a business?
Well, I think if there was three things that I could pick out, I think it's sales. Entrepreneurs need to spend a lot of time, particularly on the early days, selling their business. And a lot of entrepreneurs think that you need to do huge amounts of advertising or marketing, and that costs a lot of money. Well, in the startup phase, people are buying you. You're the business. So I think you've got to be out there pounding the pavement, knocking on doors, making phone calls to your customers. So that's the first thing. The second thing, in order to underpin that, you need to have a reputation. And it's very difficult to actually make a sale if you haven't had experience or testimonials or can demonstrate that you've done this before. So I think you need to spend a little bit of time in building a reputation. And then lastly, I'd probably pick out your business model. I think there's a huge difference between a business model that can actually be sold and you can make money out of selling it, compared to one where you're just doing a lot of effort and either people aren't buying it or people are buying it and you're not making enough money. So there's a big difference between a really killer business model and one that's just an also-ran model.
And so particularly in the early stages, what are some things that entrepreneurs can do to really drive revenue?
There's a couple of things if we're talking about driving revenue and increasing the sales in a business. For me, these days, it's a lot of it's about how do you actually access the customers? Where can you get access to the customers, whether that's through database marketing or if it's a retail side of things, how do we actually make sure that customers know we exist? And then secondly, it's about how do we convert those potential prospects to our products. So potentially it's having a range of different products or services that are easy to sell, which you could call a beachhead product or service. And then once you've got the customers using your product, then you can start to upsell them and cross-sell them maybe into a higher value product.
A lot of what you guys were doing was in the marketing services arena. What did you guys understand about marketing that perhaps the rest of us didn't?
Yeah, well, when we first started our business nearly over 15 years ago now, most organisations spend most of their time trying to acquire new customers, and it was all about acquisition. That's where marketing departments were incentivised on, and our concept was all around customer relationship marketing, which was all about how do you actually, sure, bring in a new customer, but more than anything, how do we make sure that we make more money out of every existing customer that you've got? So that's through upselling, cross-selling, and we came up with a concept we called marriage marketing, which was all about, rather than just spend all of your time wooing the customer up to the point when they sign on the dotted line, it's about the post-marriage, what you do to keep a relationship alive, and that's through communication, it's through being able to make sure you consult with your customers and you tailor your products and services to what they're looking for. And a lot of companies talk about how 80% of the profits come from 20% of the customers. Well, in a lot of organisations I've seen it, sometimes it's 90% of the profits come from 10% of the customers. So I think it's there that you really want to actually focus your attention first and foremost is existing customers.
Great. That's a really interesting point, because I've heard you talk about that before. What's some of the things we can do to really build the relationship with prospective clients or existing clients along that journey?
Well, relationship development first and foremost has to be, you have to have a good product or service, and you have to stand by your reputation around that. So it's about having touch points which you can engage your customers to make sure that you're delivering value to them, whether that's through feedback or just normal relationship calls or appointments. We want to make sure that we're consistent to our brand, so everything else reinforces who we are. And I'm a big believer that, particularly entrepreneurial companies, you need to have a unique personality. So one of the things that we did in our business, because we'd set that goal around mountain climbing, a lot of our touch points with our customers was all around this whole theme. So our reception was like a campfire when they came in. All of our meeting rooms, for instance, had mountain themes. We had a rock climbing wall. Even our training programs were called the Ascend training program, where our staff went through various levels. So we continued to reinforce that sort of theme, and then of course every couple of years we'd go and take our staff on a mountain climbing adventure, and we'd get some of our clients involved in that journey as well. So having the unique personality, I think, is pretty important, because then customers know who you are as a business and how you'll treat and interact with them. Well, the second thing I'd probably say about building relationships with customers is treating them like human beings rather than us against them. So a lot of I guess entrepreneurs treat their clients like clients rather than partners. So how do we actually be on the same side as the table, and we develop a proposition together that's going to work for them but also is going to work for us, and simple things like even making customers aware of your profitability. How much money, if we're going to sell a good for $1,000, how do we make our profit? And because customers are usually okay if you're making a profit, but there's a lot of times they don't realise that you don't make nearly as much profit as the price may appear. So actually having that, we used to call it a co-sourcing. Rather than outsourcing, we had this concept called co-sourcing, which was all about how do we come together. We need to make money, they need to get value, and we need to beat the competition, but being very transparent around pricing is one of those things. Having a very transparent relationship that everyone can pick up the phone and say what's on their mind, I think goes to a long way to building a good relationship.
And so you would actually tell the client where their dollars were going, what margins you were making, all that sort of stuff?
Absolutely. I think transparent pricing is so important in most businesses. If you're making astronomical margins, well, maybe not, but most businesses don't really make astronomical margins, in which case I think it's good to factor in not only what goes in to actually make your cost of goods sold, the direct costs involved in that product or service, but talk to them about how much it does cost you to actually have overheads, it does cost you to have your support team, it does cost you to do sales and marketing. So once you actually put those in, most companies are making somewhere between a 10 or a 20% net profit. So it's not a big margin for the amount of extra effort you're going to deliver for that customer.